Hi, all. This is Dylan Poppy back again for the third and hopefully final of my just MTGO match playback screencasts. As I explained, I um, will ideally start streaming at some point, but since I just started on MTGO, still getting used to I've gotten pretty comfortable playing the deck and the interface at this point, but still trying to work on picking out a pace of play so that I can actually stream in a, not clock out in every match while interacting with Twitch chat and whatever. Um, but people were still interested in seeing my deck in action, so I figured with having the match replays available on MTGO, just doing screencast commentary of these three that I've done so far would be a good way to get that out to people. And then probably from now until I get a stream set up, I'll just live record commentary my leagues and upload those videos. But for now, it's a screencast. I've gone over the basic kind of deck tech and deck background in the first video, and also talk about how you can reach me to talk to me about the deck. But just to quickly reiterate before getting on to the games, and this is my my deck I've been referring to as Blue-White Violist Control Spirits. That's just how people seem to think of it, so that's what I'll call it. It's kind of easy enough. It gets the idea across well enough. Just four of six different of all six of the core spirits, plus four counter spells. Those counter spells are great. Cantrips are great. One Curious Obsession over the fourth opt. Just I've been experimenting with that for a while and seemed good enough as a free roll. Just one of over cantrip so far, but more experience might show it's bad. You can just play 4 opt if you want. 4 Path to Exile, of course, and then to round everything out, Snapcaster Mage, Path to Exile 5 through 6 when you need it, Counter Spells 5 through 6 when you need it, end of turn, replace itself with some card selection when you need pressure, or if you only have 2 mana and just really need pressure or a blocker, then it's that too. I feel like the card should explain itself, but other people who look at my deck and think that you only want spirits in your spirits deck sometimes disagree. Same with Vendilion Click, but like couple people have been catching on to that a little more. And yeah, let's face it, otherwise, got Pledge Trans and Shocklands, and then some additional blue fetches, just because like 2.5 blue fetches are better than having many additional copies of any other dual land options we have anyway. And then since I have Logic Knot, that pushes me towards the third one anyway. Then yeah, a couple shocks, a couple celestial colonnades. This is pretty controversial. People not understanding in this deck, and but I think in some of the matches that I've already recorded or will be recording in this video, show it off. How I actually get to 6 mana regularly, and it comes in handy. Then one of each of these to round out. Seacrum Coast kind of bad because, like I said, you want to get to 6 mana, but I need one for a 13th turn 1 blue source from Mausoleum Wanderer, and Glacial Fortress is great, but I would never play more than 2 because sometimes you get like double Glacial Fortress hands, and then I only have 1 because Celestial Colonnades took up the 2nd slot. Moreland Haunt is great utility land. A lot of lists recently have been running Mutavaults, and some people in Spirits Discord were wondering about that and thinking it might be good, and now that some of them have started actually playing it, they found Mutavault is pretty terrible, and have started realizing how excellent Moreland Haunt is. Field of Ruin just rounds that out. I found 2 to be the perfect number of Moreland Haunts, because 1 is I want to see it more often than just one, and with 3, you don't need Moorland Haunt early usually, and you usually can't take advantage of multiples, so 2 has been the perfect number. I have room for 4 colorless utility lands, so Field of Ruin is an excellent way to round that out, and then some basics. And sideboard, well, I guess since I already kind of did a rundown of cards on already right now, and I haven't done a sideboard overview, I guess maybe I'll finally get around to doing that. Negate and Dispel, just great extra counter spells. Before Supreme Phantom, I had 1 main deck negate and really liked having access to 2 negates. So I might try to find room for a second. I really want to try to find room for a second negate again. Which maybe Dispel could become that now, but I also like having the 1 Dispel, just really efficient. A lot of the times, like, you don't always bring it in when you bring in negate as well, but so some matchups you want 2 negates, and then in the matchups you want Dispel, like 2 negates are also just fine, so, and Dispel can be great. Bless Alliance, really flexible. It's one of the best options against aggro decks in general, but with particular application against Burn because of life gain being particularly effective there, even though, again, like in all aggro matchups, getting up to 4 mana and doing sack a creature and gain 4 life is great as well, but the life gain is especially relevant just in the dark, like at end of turn or whatever, against Burn, and sometimes you untap creatures to block, especially that probably will come up more often now with Supreme Phantom being a good blocker, as well as making other creatures better blockers, but otherwise it's only for kind of occasional, but it happens. Definitely more so in this deck than when Blessed Alliance is in the sideboard of like control decks. Oh yeah, and also particular use against Bogles and Infect, which is just kind of free rolls, but Infect is a little bit more prevalent right now. I think it's been having some results recently, so that could be relevant. Cellar Wreckage, just unbelievably excellent sideboard card. Is like the best possible Wrath for our deck, and also doubles as like Graveyard Hate 3 through 4. A lot of the Graveyard, I mean, you don't bring it against every deck that you would bring in like Rest in Peace against, for example, but like Dredge, for instance, and Hollow One are graveyard decks that Wraths are also good against. So Supreme Verdict is kind of weird, but I just really struggle with creature decks. So 3-out's nice, and you have your own Selfless Spirit. Like with having 4 Selfless Spirits, where I can protect my own board, has made me comfortable almost always running 1 Supreme Verdict. I used, especially before Settle Wreckage, I used to run 2. The second one started to get a little iffier because like sometimes you would need a second Wrath, but like usually for the first Wrath, it's fairly consistent to be able to have 1 Selfless Spirit, keep 1 Selfless Spirit around when you need it, but the second Wrath is kind of awkward. And especially with having Cellar Wreckage now, the Supreme Verdict might not be as necessary, and Supreme Phantom shores up aggro matchups as well. But sometimes also the uncounterability is relevant. Primarily Grixis Death Shadow and Merfolk. Although sometimes it can be better than Settle Wreckage against like elves or something, like black-green elves, where they can kill you without attacking with Shaman of the Pack. But again, it might be less necessary now. Like that might be a good spot to get my second negate back in there. Again, especially with already having these 2 settles, Engineer Explosives, and Supreme Phantom, hopefully shoring up aggro matchups. But Grixis Death Shadow is also coming back up a little bit now, so that might be a reason to keep it. But anyway, like this and the Supreme Verdict and the Detention Sphere are kind of the least necessary. Is like my personal taste, kind of. So those can definitely be sort of anything. Engineer Explosives, great. I used to only think of it for 3 colors because I mostly only see it in 3 color decks, but like areas, the reason for me, it's mostly for decks that are full of 1s and 2s or even 0s, like tokens. Anyway, because this deck struggles the most against linear aggro. So those are decks that are just full of their entire deck is ones, some twos, and then there's sometimes there could be token decks that have a bunch of zeros. So that's mainly what it's for anyway. No need for the third color for me. Like the only reason why I would really look for a third color would be like it's a good card to bring in against against like lantern control, because you can hit it on one and blow up a bunch of rock like lanterns and mill rocks. And the ensnaring bridge is obviously good there, but we have counter spells for bridge, and spell queller, and detention sphere also cleans that up. But it would be occasionally nice if we could have a third color for that reason. But like otherwise, I guess there's stuff like maybe green-white creature decks that could have like Knight of the Reliquaries or whatever. But for the most part, the decks that I want to bring in engineered explosives don't have 3 mana cards anyway. Yeah, detention sphere is just a catch-all to have. Like it has particular use against tokens and ensnaring bridge, but also just bring it in like against control for planeswalkers, especially if they're miracles, and it can clean up the angels. But again, just catch-all. Like I'll occasionally bring in as supplemental removal a sleeper against aggro decks if they're not a aggro deck that's like too fast where the 3 mana is too clunky. Trying things like Blood Moon decks, since they'll tend to have some other permanents that matter as well and can clean up the Blood Moon. Yeah, just catch all for whenever. Like I said, because it's pretty generic and is slightly inefficient in this deck. Like it's a lot better in blue-white control. You have like usually 1 or 2 main deck, and it's not quite as clunky there because you're going up to like 4 mana rats and 5 mana planeswalkers and stuff. So it's a little bit, the 3 mana sorcery speed is a little clunkier in this deck. So yeah, that's part of the reason why this and the Supreme Verdict are kind of the most optional card in my sideboard. But I'm just kind of a fan of the card, and it's a good catch-all. So it's never too terrible. The only reason to not have it for me would be like if I really wanted something better, like the second negate, and still wanted the verdict or whatever. But yeah, it's a D's card. And of course, also exile. It's kind of like with Settle Wreckage, like the exile is relevant. Like Dredge, cleaning up all their prized amalgams would be great. Remorseful Clerics. So I used to have my 2 graveyard slots be a Relic of Progenitus and a Surgical Extraction. Like I have Snapcaster Mage and Logic Knot, so I'm really into Rest in Peace. But even before that, like even before I picked up Logic Knot, against I was playing it like most of the graveyard decks that I was playing against, at least at the time, and in my metagame or whatever, like my local PPTQ metagame or whatever, had a lot of things like blue-white control that has some Snapcasters and Search Red Scantas, whatever, and like Grixis Death Shadow that has Snapcasters and Delve creatures. And I know a lot of people will bring in Rest in Peace against those matchups just to shut down those graveyard things. But for one, I never really felt great about that. Maybe against Grixis Death Shadow, but especially against control, like if they're blue-white and they only have 2 Snapcaster Mages and 2 Search Red Scantas or whatever, like it's probably just bad to bring in Rest in Peace. But also, besides those general facts, in particular against those kinds of matchups, like Moorland Haunt was one of my best cards. It was one of the most important cards in those matchups. So Rest in Peace shutting off my Moorland Haunt, which is the best card in those matchups all the times. I ended up moving off Rest in Peace toward the Relic of Progenitus, especially anyway. And like I said, I wasn't really running into much Dredge and stuff, so like if I had been running into more Dredge and hard graveyard decks, if I was struggling against them, then I might have gone to Rest in Peace and just kept it there anyways. But since I wasn't running into those, Relic of Progenitus was just better. And the few times I've played against Dredge, like I've done fine, so I haven't felt, even against the hard graveyard decks, I haven't felt like I needed it. needed the rest in peace anyway. But anyway, so and then Surgical Extraction became my it piece for a little bit more like hard removal. You know, it doesn't turn off the entire deck of graveyard decks, but a lot of the graveyard decks revolve are kind of combo-y that, you know, revolve around particularly things like against Dredge. If you just Surgical Extraction or Prized Amalgam, like all of a sudden their deck functions much less, and then if especially once you can Snapcaster it and take like the Blood Gas, then all of a sudden the deck basically has no gas. So that's why I like Surgical Extraction. But I wanted to give Merciful Cleric a try. I said with those situations I described with both of those other two graveyard pieces, I might still end up liking those better, and I am like, yeah, it seems a lot of people I've talked to on Discord and such a little bit skeptical about Merciful Cleric. Like, you know, they argue that Merciful Cleric just doesn't actually do what you need it to do against certain matchups, and that they really want the Rest in Peace. But you know, maybe they've been supplementing Rest in Peace with like one Merciful Cleric or something. But anyway, since for one thing I wasn't really running the hard like Rest in Peace anyway, and also just wanted to give the Remorseful Cleric a try to see for myself how good or bad it is. I just replaced my 2 graveyard pieces with the Remorseful Cleric for now, and we'll see how it goes. It's only come up once so far against Storm, clearing out in response to Past in Flames, but Relic of Progenitus would have been just as good in that scenario. Stony Silence, so he shuts down artifact decks, but the number one reason for it for me is Walking Ballista specifically. So Affinity is a great matchup. You can win with Stony Silence anyway. I mean, since I have it, I'll bring it in. But I find Affinity to be a good matchup anyway. Like Tron is a good matchup, but like the games, and obviously like Stony Silence is good there. So this is kind of where like there's a lot of games against decks like Tron where even though I have a good matchup, there'll be a lot of situations where I've pretty much wrapped up the game, but like the only thing that will wreck me and bring them back into the game is Walking Ballista. I think this was especially true with these days came into my sideboard in last year's Modern PBTQ season when Eldrazi Tron was just all over the place in my PBTQ meta. And they run more Walking Ballistas, so like I've even been thinking this might be less necessary now because I haven't run into as much Walking Ballistas, but like I said, it is still good against Tron, and there are other things besides Walking Ballista where Tron can sometimes just Tron you when I don't have enough answers or like the right answers at the right time, so it's helpful there. And there's KCI, of course. Again, KCI is a good matchup because we just have a lot of counter spells and spell quellers and whatever for the actual KCI, but it's there. So I could see going down to 1 just to have it as insurance against those the Tron draws that can wreck you. But yeah, so it's there. And then Vendilion Kick and Gideon. These I've been running to run Vendilion Click for a while. It seems like good. It's it's not a spirit again, but it's a flash creature that has a disruptive element. So it's still synergistic in that way. And also, like the hand information gives you another angle that just gives you something that the rest of your deck doesn't have, and can help you see let you know what you need to save your spell queller and your counter spells for, like things like that. But it never ended up actually coming in. I never ended up finding room for it until I cut Geist of St. Traft. There's been a lot of talk recently about why Geist of St. Traft is bad. I won't talk about it really right now. Cat Light has been doing the good work of tweeting about it a lot, and other people on Discord and such have been talking about it and catching on that Geist was bad. But so once I cut the Geist of St. Trafts, shortly afterwards, I was realizing, well, you know, Geist can still have a good sideboard role, just like threats against the combo and control decks. But so I started with like 1 or 2. So I figured you could have 1 or 2 sideboard slots for Geist against combo and control, just as threats rather than just more counter spells or whatever. But then once I was at that point, I was thinking, well, there are these 2 other options that are kind of better. So like I think you have 1 to 2 slots in any combination of Gideon, Click, and Geist, depending upon which kinds of decks you're trying to target the most, or that you're struggling the most with, or you know are more prevalent in your metagame. So Gideon is obviously like, so they're basically all the 3 of those cards are basically there for some combination of control, combo, or big mana decks like Tron, Escape Shift, Titan Shift, whatever. So Gideon is kind of clearly only good against control. It's a little too slow and not disruptive against the combo and big mana decks. And so the other thing with, even though Geist is pretty great against control, it's also not just like a slam dunk, because it can actually still be awkward, like with Snapcaster Mage as well as the Sweeper. So like we're pretty good against control for one reason being that we have 4 Spell Callers and 4 Selfless Spirits to nullify their Supreme Verdicts. And so like basically the games that you lose are when you don't have those answers when they have their Supreme Verdict, and Geist just also dies to those same scenarios. So Gideon is more just like a Haymaker trump card that sidesteps the Snapcaster Mage issue and the Sweeper issue. So I think it's better against control. And I mean, you can't flash it, so that's kind of the only downside, but usually you can like end a turn, have a flash creature to bait out bait out them tapping down out of counterspell or whatever, so you can slam your Gideon as well, or just run him out of whatever. You can play around it to land it. Then Vendilion Click is also good in control, but especially excels against combo and big mana, just stripping their singularly relevant combo piece or big mana payoff or whatever. So Vendilion Click is the choice if you're permanently targeting this combo and big mana, while also still being just solid against control. Gideon is the best against control and not really good at all against combo and big mana. I've also been bringing in Gideon as part of my sideboard playing against humans, and it was good. I just clean up the board with a Wrath, and then Gideon just takes over the game and closes them out before they can rebuild and close out my life total, which is often already fairly low before I Wrath, so I need to close out the game quickly. And then Geist is kind of just in the middle for all of those matchups. Like, he's just solid against combo big mana and control without excelling in the ways that Click and Gideon do. So that's why I prefer these. So that's basically it. If you prefer having an actual kind of like text list to reference, I haven't bothered making an account on something like MTG Goldfish or whatever to upload yet, but there is this old IQ at top 8 a month ago, so this is my pre-M19 list. Basically all I've done right now is trim 1 Snapcaster Mage, 1 Vendilion Click, 1 Negate, and 1 Spell Snare for the 4 Supreme Phantom. Place the Relic in the Surgical Extraction with 2 Remorseful Clerics, and then I still wanted the Vendilion Click in the 75, so I replaced it as Disdainful Stroke. Otherwise, the deck, this version, so far is exactly the same. Every other card is exactly the same, because I just wanted to make those minimal changes and see if anything else, see if I want to change anything else there first. If you have any questions, whatever, want to pick my brain, chew me out for blatant, terrible misplays that I make in the videos, whatever. So I'm not on Reddit yet, but this has the link to Discord that I'm a mod on and pretty active, a Facebook group that I haven't been as active on recently because I've been on Discord, but probably want to be on there a little bit more often. And so you can find me on either of those. If you find me on Facebook, you can just send me a message on Messenger. I'm on Twitter at DillEPoppy. That's also me on Twitch. Like I said, I haven't streamed or anything yet, but eventually you can go ahead and follow me to get a notification for whenever I start streaming. And yeah, that was similar than I was planning to say on this video, but I'm glad I got the sideboard overview out of the way. And we'll go ahead and jump into this league. So as I mentioned previously, I have a couple of previous videos of the first one was just doing 5 open play matches since I was just starting on MTGO, and that was an easy way to just learn the interface. And then I did once after that I was comfortable enough to go into a friendly league, try to get build up some play points and just get used to the deck against slightly more real decks. And after that I was comfortable just start on the competitive leagues. So I should be just doing competitive leagues now, and the first one will be what this video is. So I end up going 3-2. I really count it as a 4-1 in Spirit because see this 1-1. I died to the clock, but I was in such commanding board position. I think it was likely impossible for me not to win if I had like one more turn, maybe 2, but most likely one more turn. And I just died to the clock because I know, thinking slowly, like I said, I still haven't gotten my pace of play up to where I'm satisfied. So I count it as a 4-1 in Spirit, but technically a 3-2. And maybe when we get to that, we'll be able to look a little closer to figure out what my opponent's outs might have been, that if he had any way that could have prevented me from not winning the next turn, but we'll see about that. Otherwise, can jump into it. The first match here. So yes, has pretty interesting matches. It goes to 3 games. And yeah, I've obviously watched this a couple times already, and MTGO is weird with retaining the chat messages from the previous times that you've watched the replay, and with the time shown at the time that you watched the replay. But I don't know, whatever. MTGO has issues. Yeah, don't remember what this match was yet, or oh yeah. But I mean, I have full creatures, so it's one of those cases where people always think top lands are weird, but in case like this, like, well, I mean, first of all, I imagine to keep this hand because it has some solid spells and lands. But like in cases where I have my first 3 lands untapped, and then this can easily just be tapped on turn 4. Like I might end up drawing a couple 2-drops where I wanted to double 2-drop on turn 4, but at the moment it looks like I can just curve out untapped lands for the first 3 turns, and then this is just a free tapped land that may not matter at all. So so you have to look at the context of the deck is built in a way to be able to have enough lands, like 22 lands, and some ops to help filter lands and hit land drops, and just, minimizing the curve by playing it, as many 1-mana spells and whatever as I can, so I can most efficiently use my mana while working around the top land. So you can't just think of the top lane isolation. The deck is built to use it well, and you can contextually figure out when the best time to play it is. But anyway, let's continue on. Yeah, this was a good hand to keep. We just get an island. So we don't know if our life total is going to matter in the matchup to just shock, and we have white, like island plains can just be a perfect way to start in many games. Then I have a second white in case it's necessary for later, so no need to shock or anything. I have it looks like it's humans, which I'm feeling kind of bad about, and already, because that's a pretty bad matchup for me, but at least I have some creatures that could get big. Just try to start racing, and hope for the best. Obviously I need to opt non-response. Having another spell color seems fine. Like, this is a way that I could just cheese my way out of the game. Having double spell colors, even though they have Vial, of course, but, you know, they're going to be wanting to play creature and Vial, so spell color will still be good, and could be a good way to finally win the game, and that's as good of a spell color target as any, more or less. And yeah, Drogskol Captain is exactly what I want to see. So I guess, yeah, you might have a question of like whether I want to keep up spell color again for this turn, or play the captain. But for one, so like I said, this is a pretty tough matchup, especially game one. I've never won a game one against humans, but having like double Mausoleum Wanderer into a captain is one of the ways that I could. And like already, even this hand has been like slightly slow for humans, and having double Mausoleum Wanderer into captain is about the best way that I can hope to just race against humans, especially punishing this like kind of slowish start, like they haven't had Mantis Riders or whatever yet. And also before they can get this Vial up to 3 or have 3 lands for Reflector Mage to protect my Spell Queller. And yeah, not sure why they necessarily needed to do that in response right now, but whatever. Obviously it doesn't matter, it's just a 1-2 in the air. And I'm attacking for 9, 13, like chump block. I mean, obviously they wanted to do it before attacks, but they didn't necessarily need to do it in response to captain. I guess that's just a more efficient way to use priority. I don't know. Mid-code things. Yeah, and they just scoop here. Yeah, so already like this was blowing my mind. This is, I literally never won a game 1 against humans. So I've never won a match against humans. I didn't. From what I've seen, the people talking about other Spirits decks, Bant and the typical Vial blue-white lists, people seem to have pretty good or at least even match against humans from what they've claimed to me. Whereas like I've just had a miserable matchup against humans. Like I'd always say that humans and black-white tokens were the 2 decks that I feel like are just a buy for my opponent when they sit down against me in the entire modern metagame. I guess I've only played against like Infect and Bogles once, and those seem particularly tough. Like aggro decks in general are kind of tough, but other aggro decks I feel like I've been managed to do to get to a point where I'm reasonably comfortable against, if still a little unfavored. Like Bogles and Infect might be particularly difficult, but humans and black-white tokens are only 2 that like felt pretty close to impossible. Like I've won game 2s against humans at least. I'm not even sure about black-white tokens. I probably won when I used to play Warship. But I've won game 2s, but since like game 1s would always feel pretty much as close to as impossible to win as you can get in a game with variants like Magic. I was basically have to win game 2, but then even then enough would have to go right that the likelihood of all of those things going right again in game 3 just never happened. So like this was already just baffling that I won this game 1. But for this, like I was thinking, maybe Supreme Phantom really has been a game changer. But then I realized, looking back at this game, like Supreme Phantom, I didn't even draw this game. But I mean, they had kind of a slow hand, and I had a pretty good way of curving out. So this was just, I'd say my, the variance of like my maybe 5% chance of winning a game 1 just finally happening. But we will see in other games against humans that Supreme Phantom really is quite relevant. So I think things might be looking substantially. Let's end this game. We have to go back to this for the next game. Might be looking substantially better. With Supreme Phantom. Because I guess like the reason why my version struggles so much, where at least the Vial and Bant versions are good, is I'm a little slower to get on board. Like I just never tend, on average, to be able to get enough creatures on board quickly enough to keep up. And like being slower doesn't make my deck just strictly better. Like the things that my deck does give me edges in other matchups. They just make some decks like humans particularly bad, because like humans attacks on so many angles that just keeping pace with them on the battlefield is the only way to win, since my disruption isn't always as relevant. But Supreme Phantom substantially improves my board presence and clock. So even without Vial and Coco to keep me ahead on board, I think this might be enough to even things out. And this looks just one land isn't enough, so this is probably a mulligan. So yeah, this mulligan. And this is also only one land, but it's island and an opt and a bunch of disruption. I have kept forgetting in previous times I took some screenshots of how I sideboarded. So since we're right here at the beginning of game 2 and Stony Silence might be controversial, I guess that reminds me that I can go ahead and so this was match 1, game 2. So I brought in all the sweepers, Settle, Supreme Verdict, Engineering Explosives, plus Alliance is just solid removal. Like, sometimes they'll attack with Noble Hierarch, which is the only way they can make bad, but they might not necessarily they're probably not playing around that in game 2, and so otherwise, if they don't swing with Noble Hierarch as a 0/1, and also even like if they're attacking with Noble Hierarch, especially in game 2, it could be buffed from lore, from like the I'll use the Lieutenant and stuff to be essential threat anyway. So pretty much anything they sacrifice are things that I'm happy if they sacrifice. And it's flexible, just extra removal. Tension Sphere, just as much removal as possible, and Gideon. And then, so I've recently been starting to bring in Stony Science. So it's kind of controversial against Vial decks of whether you bring in Stony Silence. And I didn't for a long time, but even with I was having like an 8 card or something cyber plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, like all these 8 cards, otherwise, and was still struggling so hard that I tried bringing the Stony Silence as well for just like a 10 card sideboard plan. So as I figured, like I was struggling against humans in part because they just attack on so many angles, that I also wanted to similarly be able to fight on multiple angles, like this bunch of removal, but also just cut off the Vial as part of the way that helps them get ahead. And I also just had 10 cards that were actively bad, so it was better than what I had to take out. Now, with Supreme Phantom replacing some of the couple counter spells that were bad, I only have these other 8 cards that I would bring in necessarily, so I might not use Stony Silence anymore. But anyway, I only end up bringing in 1 Stony Silence, because I definitely had the 4 counter spells to take out because those are just bad. Mausoleum Wanderer's faces a dead card. Like I don't sideboard out Mausoleum Wanderer very often, even against decks that don't have very many instants or sorceries. Because usually, like all decks will have some sort of instant sorcery, but even if they don't have any, a lot of times, like you need it just as a 1-drop, just as part of your curve, as part of your clock, just to race while you disrupt with other things. But after playing against humans enough, I found like even the body here was so irrelevant, especially because of Mantis Rider, but even just other creatures. I'm having to play so much on the defensive control role, and this just does not block well enough. Could be better with more lords, but still not quite there probably. So these are all through that, and then the Curious Obsession scenario, like this is one of the few matchups where it is regularly the case that you are just not in a position to attack. Like there are other aggro matchups and stuff where you need to bring stuff back to block, but usually you want to be getting in there with at least one creature anyway to keep up some sort of clock while you maybe have to keep 1 or 2 creatures back to block or something. But it's so often the case that you're just only blocking and not being able to attack, so Curious Position bad. So with taking all those out and then having these 8, so these were 9 to take out, and these 8, like removal, were definitely coming in, and then 10-3 and Gideon I thought I liked, so I had 1 more card. I was hanging between Vendilion Clique and Stony Silence. I decided to go with Stony Silence here, but I think I changed my mind for game 3 and brought the Vendilion Clique instead of the Stony Silence. I guess especially because I think that might be just better in general, but there could be an argument being made for I'm on the draw this game, so the Stony Silence will help slow a Vial down. Now I'm on the draw, whereas on game 3 I get to go to the play, and Vendilion Clique just being pressured to keep up your advantage on the play could be better. So there's a possible argument about that, and I'll have to test some more and figure that out of whether I want the Stony Silence at all anymore. That's all. So that's how I sideboard. And here, 3 sideboard cards, as much removal, an island, and opt to hit more land drops. We're already on 6, so 6 perfectly good. Oh, and we draw another land draw off the top, which is good. So I guess it's possible if without the Thalia, I might have just like I usually opt pretty aggressively turn 1 or whenever I have an opt against humans, just finding removal. But like in this hand, I have so much removal already that if there wasn't for Thalia, I probably would have just done tapped Hollow Johnson there and saved the opt for later. I might have also been just wanting to make sure I got 3rd land, but especially with Thalia, I might as well do it now, so I'm not having to pay 2 mana to cantrip later. But could probably go either way. Getting a 3rd land is nice. And just go ahead and get that tapped out of the way. Like, I don't need the Stony Silence yet. I could do Engineering Explosive on 2, but I don't know if that's for sure if that's what I need yet. Path is probably going to be just as good as anything anyway. Like maybe they have a freebooter this turn, or wait, no, I can't path because of Thalia, but I'm not under that much pressure anyway, so I don't know for sure what else I need this turn anyway. Oh yeah, and again because of Thalia, I can't do Stony or Blessed Alliance anyway, so top land is fine. Oh, yeah, I forgot. What did they get from? I think they got a freebooter. Yeah, freebooter. Something that ends up encouraging me to put the EE on 2 at some time soon to discourage the freebooter, and they're also going to have 2 drop here at some point. Yeah, I have to figure out how to actually cast this EE on Moto. Making sure that it actually works correctly. And yeah, it ends up being 2. So yeah, so since there's already this 2-drop that I kind of want to blow up because it's taxing my spells, and they have another 2-drop that in hand, and for some reason they decide to just run this Thalia out. maybe might as well now. So C on 2 is good. I mean, that's probably the number I would most often pick against humans anyway. So I could have probably just safely cast Stunning on turn 2 if I didn't want the tap, if I didn't have the tap land, but it's nice to have the extra info. Like, I never know, they could have used this turn to drop like Noble, Champion, but the N2 seems safe now. So on this turn, yeah, I think they were probably about to cast the Freebooter, but realized they should bait out basically what my plan is of just attack to encourage me to blow up this E, so then they can cast their Freebooter later. I could save keeping up a path for the Freebooter, but I'm already at 9, I just want to go ahead and take care of this. Like, leaving them with a path to take with their Freebooter without a guaranteed way of me getting it back could be bad, but Life Toll's already out under enough pressure. Like I need to keep a healthy enough life total to, even though I'm clearing up their board decently well, like they still have 4 cards in hand, and even in situations where like they're empty-handed and I settle them, a lot of times they draw some reasonably big creatures pretty fast. So even in those scenarios, like I need to preserve life total pretty well because like I need enough time to be able to build up my board and finish and have enough turns to finish them off before they can rebuild to whittle down my life total. Yeah, so I'll Spellcaller or Blessed Alliance. I guess I decide that's a good enough Spellcaller target. This looks like Mantis Rider, yeah, so that's annoying. Would have preferred to Spellcaller that, obviously, but yeah, they're like sometimes it's hard to decide when someone casts like a cheap but quite relevant card of whether you should just go ahead and Spellcaller it, like wait for something more impactful to Spellcaller at risk of them just not playing anything else to let one thing resolve. So I don't know. It's probably arguable there, but this because they could also have Reflector Mage, but I guess I felt in that situation, especially since this Spellcaller blocks the creatures that are on board pretty well. I just wanted to make sure for sure that the Spellcaller did something with also the possibility of holding off the creatures that are on board. Yeah, no, I don't want to attack because it's still holding off these creatures. I can again Spellcaller Blessed Alliance. In this case, so this time I let it resolve because I guess I'm prioritizing just the Blessed Alliance more. Yeah. So now these. So this is figuring that this is a free attack because if I block it, I'm still dead to those others. But I go ahead and take the Blessed Alliance because I'm pretty happy with him sacking any of these. This one, obviously, get my spell back, and like that's optimal. But you know, could mess up. But I'm pretty happy if any of these are sacrificed. And with the really great upside if just makes a mistake or whatever, or decides that wants to give me path for some reason, I don't know. But yeah, that makes sense. And now, yeah, so I'm not dead, so I can just keep that and go to 3. It's a lot better than just losing a creature. freebooter gets a Stoning Silence, it doesn't matter. So that might have also been a reason that encouraged me to go with the Vendailing Click for game 3. Yeah, not much I can do here except threaten a favorable block on Mantis Rider and favorable block somewhere else, and then just bluff having drawn a path to stay alive, but I'm dead. And no defense Rider especially, so yeah, this is kind of how like most games have always gone for me. I just can't do enough quickly enough. I mean, it's actually went pretty fairly well with the amount of removal I had and stuff, but able to rebuild quickly, and drawing Mantis Rider is always bad. So it's kind of how this is sort of more or less how I'm used to the games going. So, but clearly we win this game. So let's see how I manage that. I didn't see. I clicked through it quickly to see what my hand was, but yeah, this is Path, Snapcaster. So like having both of those is just about the best I can hope for, and just hope to draw a settle later. Like that would make things ideal, and have Rattle Chains and 3 lands. So I'm feeling pretty good. And then yeah, scryed the Spellcaller on top. So yeah, so I didn't crack my fetch land on turn 1 because I scryed this. I mean, I didn't need to use it, and I had the Spellcaller on top that I knew I wanted to keep. And like I didn't need a Hallowed Fountain right away. I have plenty of colors. Right. Yeah, here's a freebooter. We can go ahead and path it. Get our Path to Exile in the graveyard where it belongs. Where it rightfully belongs. And now get my Hallowed Fountain. Now we have Snapcaster set up. Can Spellquell or something, or just Rattle Chains and Opt, or this seems like just a fine Spellqueller target. It attacks or spells, but also just like they're casting a spell. I want to Spellqueller it and stay ahead. There's nothing it's like too terrible that they can do on 2 mana at this point. Meddling Mage, Drogskull Captain, even though he saw my hand and saw that I didn't have a Drogskull Captain. Like Meddling Mage can also be another reason for the Supreme Verdict sideboard, just diversify between Settle and Supreme Verdict. As a matter of fact, I've never had a player named Settle Wreckage with Meddling Mage for me. For one thing, like they might not be familiar with playing against it in Modern, so like in game 2, they're most likely not naming it unless they see it with their freebooter or whatever, and don't take it with the freebooter. So the most likely scenario would be in game 3 after they saw it in game 2, but even in those cases, they've still ended up usually naming something like Spellqueller or Drogskull Captain, which, I mean, makes sense. Like, I have more Spellquellers and Drogskull Captains than Settle the Wreckages. I'm probably just very safe not having the Verdict just for Meddling Mage, but as I said, there are other. I kind of prefer it if I want to play a 3rd Wrath to a 3rd Settle Wreckage, rather than a 3rd Settle Wreckage, because of uncounterability, and sometimes just needing to kill stuff that's not attacking creatures is relevant and whatever. But that's one factor that you can take into consideration if you want. That's right. Try and field around like pretty happy like if there comes up a situation where they play it on the Horizon Canopy, and top out of ability to sacrifice it, and like I'm in a spot where I can safely just use my mana Field of Ruining, like if I don't have anything better to do or whatever. I usually feel pretty good about Field of Ruining a Horizon Canopy, and when those situations come up. Otherwise, doesn't do much, so whatever. Opting into wasn't sure, like, at this point, since they have CMAN, you know, maybe they might care enough about Snapcaster Mage to name it, and I don't want that to happen, so I was stopped to see what I might find to deal with the Phantasmal Image, and the Spell Color seems good enough for that. Again, just keeping bodies on my side and off of theirs, and I might want to protect the I probably want to protect the Snapcaster Mage in case that's what they decide they want to name at this point. My left hole's, you know, they can finally attack now, but my left hole's healthy enough at this point that I'm not too worried. And there's Settle Wreckage, so that's good. We start attacking. In this situation, like, I could just go ahead and settle for the 2-for-1, but since I have an opportunity, if you watched my previous video and saw my match against Merfolk, so when they had a 3-3 and a 2-2, like Mirror Regery and Lord of Atlantis, or something like that. They only attacked the Mirror Regery since they didn't want me to ambush Viper, their non-Island Walk Lord, since the Lord of Atlantis gave Island Walk to the other creature. But anyway, so in that scenario, where Snapcaster Mage Path was excellent, being able to snap in, Path the Lord of Atlantis, so all of a sudden their other creature doesn't have Island Walk, and you can trade there, and it's just a disgusting 2-for-1. So here, since I have the opportunity to do that, that's what I am going to try to do instead, and then, you know, I'll still probably be able to settle later if they need to, like they have 3 more cards, they might have 3 more creatures or whatever, and I can settle later if I need to. They have Gut Shot for the Snapcaster, so I don't entirely get to play out the plan as described, but if using a Gut Shot on my Snapcaster rather than my Rattle Chains, or rather than like if I later needed to block like a 2-2 with the 2-3 and they could use a Gut Shot to finish off Spell Queller or something, like this is probably the happiest I'm ever gonna you know, the happiest situation for how they can use their Gut Shot for me, so I'm still pretty fine with that. So now that I'm not going to be a 2-for-1 here, I do solve the question, you know, how to make the choice of what I want to path. This one's bigger right now, but this one will obviously get bigger later. But there's also the possibility that I draw a Drogsaw Captain later that I will want to cast. And especially these, like if I draw a Drogsaw Captain next turn, I'll probably just want to go ahead and play it, protect from Reflector Mage. So I have Rattle Chains to protect, or after this path, I'm not going to have a mana for Rattle Chains for this turn, but if I drew a Drogsaw Captain next turn, I want to protect these from like Reflector Mage, and also just, you know, it helps that it attacks for more too. So I think I go ahead and path the Meddling Mage, and then I have Settler Wreckage that can just clean up Dahlia and whatever other just attacking creatures exist later. Like that one. And another path is great. Just keep attacking. I have Reflector Mage, I have Rattle Chains, and they scoop with this on the stack, I believe. Yep. That Reflector Mage. So yeah, so that was game 3, right? Yeah. So like at this point, my mind is kind of blown. As I mentioned before this, I have never in my life won a match or a game 1 against humans, and now I've won a match and a game 1. So my mind's pretty blown. I'm thinking like Supreme Fan is great, but then as I said earlier, when I reflect back on this game, like in games 1 and 3 that I won, I never even drew a Supreme Phantom. And in game 2, when I drew the Supreme Phantom, like I was just dead anyway. There was no card in my deck other than Settle the Wreckage or Supreme Predict that saved me there. So Supreme Phantom was not relevant at all in this match, but see, I face humans again later, and it does become very relevant. And so, you know, this match is just like there are no 0% matchups that exist in Magic. So occasionally I'm gonna be able to win one. Just draw all the right cards in the right way. But I am very glad to be able to start off my first competitive league checking off these historic boxes for me of winning a game 1 in a match against humans. So here comes my only real loss of the league. Sucks pretty good. In here, like I don't have 3 untapped lands already in hand, but like I can carry out Mausoleum Wanderer and a Supreme Phantom, and then you know, maybe to be able to draw a 3rd untapped land. And yeah, there's 3rd untapped land. So again, like I'm lined up to have this this top land very likely not matter being a top land. I feel like I need to just, you know, to address that concern every time I draw this, just for the education of those watching who think it doesn't belong. Searing Blaze is gross. Yeah, Burn is a tough matchup. I felt like I've been doing pretty decent against it. Like Snapcaster is great. All my counter spells are great because counter spells are good against Burn. Those Burn spells happen on the snack, and you need counter spells to stop them. So Snapcaster Mage rebuying counter spells or doing, you know, what you've seen before of like maybe they attack with the Goblin Guided Swift Spear and I can path Swift Spear and then trade with Goblin Guide River. So I've been feeling pretty good, you know, relatively decent against Burn these days, but it's still a tough matchup. And this is one of the matchups where I like the Dispel on the sideboard because Dispel is great. It's really the most efficient counter spell. So I guess Spell Queller this. I didn't Spell Queller it because I didn't want it to be a bait for Eidolon, I guess. Get Sea of Chrome Coast, yay. And then I think it's Eidolon. Yeah, so I got rewarded. As I used to say, play right, get rewarded. You know, maybe or maybe not. That may or may not have been a play right. Because maybe you can argue you just want to have the Goblin Guide anyway. But I was too worried about Eidolon. And now this curious obsession, giving 3 toughness while they're tapped out is going to be great. I mean, there's one downside where like it basically forces me to have to attack, whereas in this situation, I'd rather be able to sit back and block. But so it's kind of weird. Like I don't know, they only have 2 cards left. I'm at 13. Like this Goblin Guide is going to do a lot of damage, but at least right now I'm at 13. If I draw a couple more creatures or a couple counter spells or something, like I might be able to raise. In general, against Burn, like you can't just sit back and block all day. You have to do something to close out the game, especially since I don't have other interaction right now. But I can opt into some. So besides wanting to get this to the 4th toughness to protect it from burn spells, I'm also not unhappy needing. I'm also just like wanting to attack in this matchup in general, even if in this situation I might not necessarily. So it's close, but drawing cards will also help. Between drawing a card, getting opts to help me find more interaction. There's other threats. You know, I think this will be a pretty a fine spot anyway. Use this, and there's I can go ahead and the other way. So I see Snapcaster Mage, and I think that's fine to keep with Floodstrand because it will be a guaranteed way that I can trade with this Goblin Guide. And just, you know, although I realize at this point that, let's see, do I have my land drop for the turn? Right, I do. Yes, I realize I should play this Glacial Fortress. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I need a third blue source to snap opt. So that was a misplay. So this Celestial Colonnade was not bad here just because it was a tapped land, because I have plenty of other lands. It was bad because, yeah, I figure I probably played it here because I figure I can start attacking with it next turn. But I should realize that specifically this turn, I want to snap opt. So, you know, that was misplay on my part. This is not Celestial Colonnade's fault. There, I'm figuring, see if I can find a counterspell for this Boros Charm. Like, there's a lot of situations where my default, if I opt and see an opt, will be to keep the opt unless I really need something else. Because it just, you know, if you can afford to spend one more mana to dig one more card deep, then keeping opt and just opting again digs you deeper. But in this case, I'm hoping for a counterspell. I only have one blue. So that's another scenario where if I had this third blue, then maybe I would have kept the opt and opt again. But no, I can't really afford to be opting forever in this matchup and in this situation. So we bottom the opt. Just hope to have the next spell be a counterspell. But I'm dead. Yeah, I probably should just flash in the Snapcaster Mage to block there. But oh well. Yeah, so maybe it was a combination of like they revealed Logic Knot and like I said counterspells are gonna be good, so maybe I wanted to just hope that they didn't have another burn spell on hand, in which case having the Logic Knot for next turn would be good. And then there's greedy reasons of just wanting to use the Snapcaster to opt, but like in this situation, if I didn't care about the card on top, I will be very happy just using this as 1-for-1 removal spell. But I guess I went the Logic Knot and just hope that they didn't have burn spell in hand. Those in kind of bad shape either way. I have a bunch of counter spells. Strogskull Captains could be great. Blessed Alliance. I only have 2 lands, but you know, we'll get there. Swift Spear. There's third land. Oh, yeah, I guess we're doing so. Yeah, so for just confirm, as I said earlier, and for game 3 against humans, all I did was I brought the Vendalian Click instead of the Stony Silence and kept everything else the same. For this matchup, match 2, game 2, Brought in 2 Blessed Alliance, negate, dispel. Did I take out all the cantrips? I can't remember doing that. Also, I've traditionally, I think, maybe I haven't played against Burn in a while. Maybe I've been. I forgot that I took out all these. I feel like I used to, when I played against Burn more often, trim like 1 opt in sideboarding. Just because it's pretty bad tempo, but like the cantrip kind of exists partially as part of like the mana base to help you hit the right mana land, so it's pretty integral, and obviously it's especially good in sideboard for digging for sideboard spells. But I might have had other main deck cards that were worse against Burn at the time if I was able to only trim 1 opt, or maybe I'm just completely forgetting and I have always cut all the cantrips against Burn, because obviously like Eidolon casting spells makes these hurt, but even more relevant is just this is a matchup where the tempo of paying a mana for a cantrip is pretty slow, and I guess when I was looking at everything, like Spell Snare is a great counterspell, and just I guess I figured everything else here were good cards. Could imagine trimming like 1 Spell Queller or something, but I just figured I had these 4 cards I wanted to bring in. Vanillic, like maybe, but I don't know. I'm not sure whether that's actually great here. And yeah, I guess I figured these were worse than, I mean, they're obviously worse than Blessed Alliance and Negate and Dispel, and that everything else was still good since I still want the counter spells. So yeah, apparently that's how I did the sideboarding, and maybe that's how I sideboard now and just don't remember. I don't know. Grim Lavamancer is obviously profanity inducing, so I'm definitely countering that. And the next spell cast will show you why I lose this game. Yep. So this fight, you know, I can hold up 2 counter spells, the science, so I guess I'll go ahead and just do that. Have a dispel for a counter spell. I don't have an answer for an Eidolon this time anyway, so kill Swiftspear as fast as possible. I think I go ahead and do the Mausoleum Wonder here, yeah, because like obviously it's just gonna die, but I'm hoping just that I can wear down his graveyard with these little creatures to clear the way for captains and whatever other creatures in the future. So it's just there to suicide, and I can still keep up negate. Yeah, obviously dies, and I go ahead and do negate here on the spell. Like the only argument for holding the spell would be if there's a sorcery later, but most of the things are instant, especially like Boros Charm and Searing Blaze, or Blood, or whatever the Searing Blaze, and then Searing Blood is the cheese hand one that's extras in the sideboard sometimes. The most important ones are instant, and this is more mana efficient right now, so. But I did have to think about that. And Goblin Guy gives me an island, it's kind of nice. I can throw out a Mausoleum Wanderer there again to suicide itself. Probably leaving up this Field of Ruin for their Inspiring Vantage. And been getting these lands, been lucky with the Goblin Guides. Yeah, hopefully cut them off of white mana. The Helix in response. Get planes, so they don't have white anymore. yeah, hoping. So they've been keeping up with the two spells in graveyard, or 2 cards in graveyard. Better than I was hoping, but at least now I'm starting to throw down a couple creatures and can protect this one, but kind of awkwardly because you can do stack stuff to clear out both. But I mean, it's kind of hopeless against Grim Lavamancer when I'm not drawing removal, so I'm just kind of going through the motions at this point, really. Yeah, so it's awkward because you protect this, but then he can ping. The opponent can ping in response to take both out, so that's basically, as I was saying, where it's going to be awkward that they can take out both anyway, which, I mean, might not have been entirely thinking about that when I played both of them, but so that's fine here. So it was weird that they passed without attacking. Serious? Oh yeah. So I was just wondering why they're thinking Blessed Alliance. They forgot. So they had seen one Blessed Alliance earlier. So I think unless they misclicked, they probably weren't wanting to let me play into Blessed Alliance here. Unless you missed it. In case you missed it, they suspended a wrist pull. So because they saw Blessed Alliance earlier, maybe they didn't want to play into Blessed Alliance here when they have basically lethal anyway. But at end of turn, I still need to go ahead and cast it for 4 life gain because between, so for one thing, if they're able to Lavamancer next turn, like I'm dead to just Lavamancer because they can Lavamancer at my end of turn and then Lavamancer the next turn, so I'm dead. I'm already definitely dead to Lavamancer, but even without that, the Rift Bolt, so like I need to gain life before their next upkeep anyway, unless I draw a counterspell for the Rift Bolt, because I'm dead between the Rift Bolt and the Lavamancer. So I should just go ahead and fire off gain 4 life now, because I'll need to do that anyway. At the latest on their next upkeep in response to Rift Bolt or Lavamancer. So I should just use the mana now. And I mean, obviously I would have rather been able to escalate there and take out a Goblin Guide. But gaining 4 life still counters a Boros Charm preemptively, essentially. So just ping me here. So they have Rift Bolt my face, and Lightning Helix, and Lightning Helix. So yeah, Burn's tough, but I mean, like that, with 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Mausoleum Wanderer, like 2 Droxel Captains, this probably would have been a great game for me, if not for Lavamancer. These are a lot of the best. Wait, I drew literally all 4 sideboard cards, and Mausoleum Wanderer and Droxel Captain are some of the best creatures. Like this Mausoleum Wanderer counter spells, and Droxel Captain. So like, if not for Lavamancer, I probably could have won that game. So that's how it goes. And then, so here's my other technically loss because of the clock. But as I said, as we'll see in this situation, I'm gonna count this as a win. Yeah, a couple lands, opt to find more land, including possibly more land haunt, but more land of any type. Starting with Unclaimed Territory, naming human, again, not feeling great about having run up against humans again, but I just won my first game, first game 1 and first match against humans. match 1, so maybe there's hope. But since we drew a Mausoleum Wanderer, we'll go ahead and start with that. Just try to get on board. We have a couple lords to make it big, so maybe we'll beat a race. And we drew a third land anyway, so that's good. Let's just play that now rather than shocking for this, because we might not need to shock later. If we draw, you know, another land that's untapped and have this tapped later. Obviously not blocking a 4/4. I mean, we drew Colonnade, so we have to shock, but that's fine. At least this could untap, and again, having this be able to be tapped on the fourth as the 4th land is, I mean, I have 2 mana spells that'll be nice to cast, but it's fine. And yeah, they're getting stuck on 2 mana here, but having a lot of Thali's Lieutenants. So that's getting me down pretty low, but I've already raced well enough to get them low that actually I guess I'm not really waste right now because they can and there's the other Colonnade, but we only need 1 more land to start activating. But having the Selfless Spirit is going to be great here to stonewall all these blocks. And since it's going to be casting Selfless Spirit, I can, and don't have a 4th untap mana, I can go ahead and just opt here to see what my other options are. I bottomed, I didn't see what I bottomed. So I just need to pass turn to set up. Like I'm not just dead if I attack 1 creature or something, but obviously since I Self Spirit, I want to be able to line up the maximum number of blocks. It actually has spells to take here. Takes the opt to stop me from digging to Path to Exiles or Lords or anything. And he already has enough creatures that just countering 1 more creature. Yeah, so how it. So with that block, it attacked. I click through it, but usually, so I was expecting that I might need to, if they attacked with everything or whatever, just block a bunch of things and Selfless Spirit. But since they only attacked with 1 thing there that I think was maybe it was 5/5 or something, it looked like I could just line up Mausoleum Wanderer and Selfless Spirit as a double block that would kill their creature, but they could only kill 1 of my creatures, and they'd probably just choose it as Selfless Spirit anyway, so it was kind of equivalent. I mean, maybe technically I could have lined up some other creatures and then sacked Selfless Spirit just in case they had something to kill my other creatures, but it's not relevant. They're not going to be fatal pushing or whatever, so didn't really matter. Another 3/3 is good here. I can hold Logic Knot up. I can get in. So I still have big enough things to block. So I can't just let this go on forever because I have a big enough thing, and I don't have a Selfless Spirit now to basically be a moat, just making me throw something in front of it every turn. So I do need to do some work closing out here, but keep back some blockers. This is going to be the least impactful creature overall. This Mausoleum Wanderer, so it can chump, and then these 2 can hold back these pretty well. So they're definitely going to be attacking with this, and I can chump. I don't want to double block because it's big enough to kill everything. Either I double block with 2 3/3s like the 2 Mausoleum Wanderers and just lose them both. And possibly if they have another creature, it's a 7/7, so I can't double block profitably anyway. So I'm expecting to just chump block with 1 and have enough creatures that if I get in this attack, this is the biggest one to attack with right now. And I'm like, all of these block the best, but this is the biggest one to attack right now, and then leave me with enough to give lethal next turn. I believe, I mean, other than the fact that they have this chump blocker, so yeah, just get in 1 attack so I can hold off both of these blockers, chump with 1, and get them low enough that with the Path to Exile to remove this blocker or another Lord or something, that I can have lethal next turn. And play my top land, or if I have a land off the top, then 6th land is excellent. So Thalia, just want to get this logic now out of the way in case I draw a land and just end up using all my mana activating a colonnade, and this is going to make their creatures bigger. So especially since this one is currently small enough for me to block with either of my creatures, whereas if it's a 3/3, I guess as a 3/3 I can block that one, but yeah, I'll just counter anything. They're constrained off mana, they're probably not being able to cast another creature to get more triggers, so counter it. So I end up attacking with everything. I guess they do this just because yeah, this is big enough now that can attack. I can safely block there, as I planned, the chump there, and then take 3. That's the best I can do. Or I guess, wait, this is only a 3/4? Maybe I didn't realize that I could safely block with the 2/4. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was probably reading this wrong or something. Reading the power and toughness wrong or something, I don't know. I probably should block there. And yeah, Supreme Phantoms is great. Here's where we're seeing when Supreme Phantom is relevant, and they concede to that, because yeah, that gives exactly lethal with this trigger. Yep. So yeah, so this is where I win games because of Supreme Phantom and not just running into my random 5% variance chance of winning a matchup. This is all due to Lords. Now game 2 is interesting. I think sideboard basically the same, except I just started with the Vendalian Click rather than Stony Silence right off the bat. Just left the Stony Silences there. I think I kind of figured out that based on that game, even if I was assuming otherwise, that I might keep the previous idea of like on the draw having a Stony Silence and on the play having a Vendalian Click. After that game, realizing that the Supreme Phantoms actually gave me enough way to keep pace on the board, I probably felt like that kind of made me decide, at least for now, that I don't need the Stony Silence to slow them down anymore. I just hope for enough new Lords to keep pace with battlefield presence, and the Vendalian Click will just be better overall. Also, he has tricks against File, and just being a body, and also a 3-power flyer for Mantis Rider to trade. So that will probably be how I sideboard, unless I keep playing against humans and find out that I just got lucky on these 2 matches and it's still terrible and I still need Stony Silence to slow them down. But it feels like I could have a decent matchup now, which is, just mind-boggling to me, or mind-bottling, as what's that Will Ferrell movie where he's a competitive ice skater. Spellcaller's Captain, Selfless Spirit. I've seen Selfless Spirit is excellent for making combat favorable. Lord's obviously good, and Spellcaller good. So yeah, I guess I'm figuring I just want to opt here just because I want to find removal. Or Supreme Phantom. Yeah, I see Supreme Phantom and keep it because yeah, these are like all of these cards, as far as creatures go, are going to be ones to help me win the game. So yeah, I think as this kind of sequencing might have come up on a previous match in like my friendly league yesterday or something, where you start with this, when the Lord sizing is going to be relevant. Start with the Phantom to get the Lords on battlefield, to just size up battlefield presence as much as possible, and then the Selfless Spirit can come down later once both sides have a battlefield presence to make the combat better. Whereas like against Jund or something where they have cheap removal, where like on turn 3 they might be able to cast something that I want to spell queller and still have a lightning bolt for it or something, then putting Selfless Spirit, I mean I guess Supreme Phantom helps against lightning bolt, but Fatal Push, for instance, they have Fatal Push or lightning bolt, so Selfless Spirit is good on turn 2 to protect the turn 3 color. But here we want maximum power and toughness on the battlefield. So they have File, and I mean this is still a relatively slow start, like File in 1 and then don't do anything until Reflector Mage, but it's fine. We have Spellcaller to hold up for this turn. And I have plenty of lands where this Celestial Colony is going to be able to be tapped at some point. Yeah, and like I could just play one of these other untapped lands and play two 2/2 drops, but it's fine. Like I feel like I still want to hold up the Spellqueller. And then next turn I have 5 mana for both Lords or whatever. And being kind of flooded like this is going to make the Colonnade good. And like this is even really all that flooded since I have all these 3-drops. Like there are times you want to get to 6 mana not just because of Colonnade, but because you have a bunch of 3-drops and you still have 2 3-drops in hand on turn 6, or more, counting Moorland Haunt also as a 3-drop, a Moorland Haunt activation, or Snap Path, or whatever. So like I'm happy getting this 6 mana a lot of times in general. Don't know why I didn't Spell Queller that, or oh, that was filed, right? Yeah, yeah, that was end of turn file. Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna Spell Queller that. That's unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? So I'm not feeling great with them hitting in there. So at this point, like they didn't cast anything, but I'm so far behind the battlefield, and I have these, all these Lords and Selfless Spirits. I'm just gonna be happy having the Spell Queller as a body on the battlefield at the end of turn if they didn't cast anything. So yeah, just go ahead with 2 Lords rather than Selfless Spirit, because like that's going to give enough power and toughness to be fine without needing the Indestructible for this turn. So all of a sudden we went from just nothing to, oh yeah, this Hostage Taker is annoying on the Vial to 4. I was not really expecting. So that's another reason why, or that's a reason why it ended up being good to have this other Lord still have the 3/4. And they're attacking with Leethling, so I have to block something. Yeah, so I guess I'm blocking with that because although it's the biggest body overall, like this, I guess the Lord will, if I have some more turns, make more power and toughness overall. or oh no, double block to trade. Yeah, that's even better. Sorry, duh. Yeah, trade with the biggest thing. I'm pretty happy doing that. Just clearing the biggest thing off the battlefield. And they cast my Jog's, which is annoying. And draw another land, but I have Selfless Spirit. Yeah, so here, get the Selfless Spirit, and I'm going to be able to snap up to dig for something and have enough blocks to stay alive. Yeah, because with all these, I'm seeing that I'm at 4, so like I have to block at least any 2 creatures, or no, I have to block basically any 3 creatures to survive. So I need all 3 of these blockers. Yeah, obviously not feeling great about my prospects in this game, and feel like I'm just treading water, like digging for something. But digging for something can find me like a Cellar Record or Supreme Verdict, which just wins me the game. So, or puts me definitely back into the game. But since I have a possibility to thrive and dig by blocking basically any 3 creatures, I see more than hot and bottom it because I need a Settled Wreckage or Supreme Verdict. I get another Snapcaster Mage, which, again, sometimes Snapcaster Mage doesn't look great when you don't have spells, but it's most of the time good enough. So luck here because I can trade there, minimize damage here, and so like Snapcaster can't block the flyer, and it can't trade because this is 2/3. So minimize damage there. We can trade here, and then I can chump either, or just bounce either of these to go to 2. And these Flooded Strands aren't looking, or so I guess I am wanting to save the block. Yeah, I'll end up saving more since I didn't draw Settle or Verdict. Then rather than just trading off 1 creature for nothing, or rather losing my entire battlefield, I had to keep 2 creatures to chump block again, or just to chump block next turn. To give me another chance at drawing something good. So yeah, at this point, so at 2, I have to block all 4 creatures, but I have 4 creatures to block with, so I have bought myself another turn by keeping my creatures alive. And that is just fine to Spell Queller, even though I might have to end up having to block something where it dies, but at least it keeps it off the battlefield for now, because yeah, it would let the Noble Hierarch get in a point of damage, and I might need to like sacrifice 1 Flooded Strand or something. So just flash in the Snapcaster as body again. So yeah, this is a good block. I'm gonna take out Strider and then have to block. So then that compels us to block the flying creature with the flying creature, and yeah, again, I just have to chump with the. So now we draw the magic weapon. Here I make a slight error, so I end up attacking with my creatures. So this is bad. It's basically forecasts that I have Cellar Wreckage. I mean, it could be a bluff about having, like, if I didn't have Cellar Wreckage, it could be a bluff about not, if I don't actually have Cellar Wreckage. But I guess also, like, even if I didn't have Cellar Wreckage, then I can keep back. These both can block these 2 profitably, and then I can activate Celestial Colonnade as a blocker. So yeah, it's best to not attack here, is I think I commented about this on a match in one of the previous videos where I did correct. I had a Selfless Spirit that, you know, they didn't have any flyers I could attack, but I kept it back to indicate that like I needed it as a chump blocker most likely, and then they attacked with everything until Erect happened. So keeping back these will most likely encourage them to have to attack with everything again like they have been. But the reason why I guess either didn't think about that in this case or decided to attack anyway was because I'm at 2, they're still at 20. Like I have to make efforts to closing this game very quickly, because even in like in this matchup in general, I found like even when the life totals aren't this terrible, like maybe I'm at 8 or something when I draw my Cellular Wreckage, and maybe I got them up to, you know, 17 or whatever. So like when the life totals aren't at this much disparity, I find I found that sometimes they can rebuild with their creatures being bigger than what I'm able to set up after Cellular Wreckage. So like I have to make a very concerted effort to close the game as quickly as possible, even after clearing off the entire board with Cellular Wreckage, even if they like, have no cards left in hand or something. So that was probably the reason why I decided to attack. But it in the Selfless Spirit, I've never seen Selfless Spirit in humans before, but I guess they probably just brought it in this matchup, just as a flyer to block. You know, who knows? They end up having some spirit synergy here. So, oh no, I get it. They brought in the Hostage Taker and the Selfless Spirit so that they could assemble the combo. I see. I understand now. I get it. Good tech. Yeah. So now that Spirits is a tier 1 deck, all you humans players should know to have a Hostage Taker and a Selfless Spirit in your sideboard that you bring in against Spirits. So yeah, so as I was talking about with the fact that attacking broadcasts to settle the wreckage, they don't attack with all their creatures, and so this could end up being a problem. They keep their biggest, and I draw a path to clean it up, but so now I still need to keep closing out the game. Let's see what I end up attacking. Like I'm gonna need to block this, right? So yeah, I figure that I have a path for the Reflector Mage, and then I can profitably block this, but I forget about the Noble Heart Exalted. But anyway, in this case, I figure I have an answer to this creature. I can block this one, so I'll just attack with the other biggest things to close out the game. And that 1 extra point isn't going to make a huge difference, but 3 and 4, those are good attackers, obviously. Dahlia, I would rather not sacrifice this to put me at 1. You know, like the difference between 1 and 2 can be significant if it comes down to this Noble Hierarch or something, I guess. So I just end up pathing the Reflector Mage, which could be bad because it lets them attack with Exalted, which I wasn't thinking about. So I end up having to just I'm compelled to chump, so that there could have been a mistake, or probably was. But again, the difference between 2 and 1 could be significant. Maybe probably not. Like I don't know. If they're attacking with Noble Hierarch with Exalted or something, like I probably have enough blockers to deal with that. So, and Gideon comes off top as looking pretty good here. Great, so it kind of puts me off of doing anything for turn because like I need to block there. I mean, I can't activate Colonnade to block this turn, obviously, so I need to block Selfless Spirit, and this can block there, and just hope there's no Reflector Mage. But given that if I'm going to take off a turn from being able to do anything, like Gideon will turn this game around. So yeah, I have to, because of Exalted, I can't block there because first strike, and I don't want to trade anyway, so just chump block. Chump blocking doesn't feel good. Yeah, it doesn't feel good unless it's on a Planeswalker that can let you do it every turn. So, yeah, figure in this case, I want to attack with that, and I assume like make a token and block with the Colonnade. Like, it's probably some argument for just attacking with Colonnade and keeping the Queller to block. Maybe I was trying to play around Reflector Mage, because they have Vial on 4, so they can't Reflector Mage my Colonnade when I activate it in combat. I'm not sure if that's the lines I was thinking of, but that's probably the best reason why one would argue for this line of attacking with the 2/3 rather than the 4/4. I have another Vial, so I'm glad I'm not the one top decking Vials. Okay, Rattle Chains. Nice, get another pressure on there or something to trade with Selfless Spirit, whatever. And also at this point, so I'm really at 50 seconds on the clock. So that's probably going to be enough for like one turn. And I don't think I can Rattle Chains and Colony, so let's see. Even if I feel safe clacking one Fledged Strand to go to 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to activate Fortress, attack with Colonnade. Oh, and then that would leave me 2 mana to Rattle Chains. I probably was just assuming that it was not going to Flooded Strand. So looks like, you know, maybe I could actually win if I activated the Colonnade to attack this turn and still have the 2 mana to flash Rattle Chains in a turn. Although that might have also still maybe died to clock, because the biggest downside to Celestial Colonnades is that it takes 6 clicks to activate, unfortunately. But since either I don't add up the fact that I can Colonnade and Rattle Chains if I take this Fledged Strand, or maybe I was just like assuming that I'm not cracking Fledged Strand and whatever, I'm playing just end of turn Rattle Chains and then Colonnade, Gideon as a creature, and just swing all next turn for my clock. And then that's annoying. So yeah, flash Rattle Chains. I have another Rattle Chains, but at this point, done 20 seconds, so like barely enough time to just activate Colonnade, activate Gideon, and just click all. I did not have the time to add up whether I actually had lethal, but it seemed, you know, reasonable that I might, and I didn't have any time to even think, let alone have another turn anyway, so just swing all. And it turns out they have just the right blockers to take 4 and go to 1 with 9 seconds left on the clock, so just die. And that's also not enough clock to let it go to their turn to attack me. So I guess if I had realized that I could safely crack the fetch last turn to attack with Colonnade and Rattle Chains, then I could have won on this turn, but in that case I probably also would have used all my clock time activating the Colonnade last turn, since I think I need to Colonnade last turn and this turn, or maybe I wouldn't need to Colonnade this turn. But also if I didn't have clock being an issue, then I should have easily been able to just attack with like Colonnade or whatever this turn, or like maybe attack with 2 things that threaten lethal that force them to chump block, and then I can win next turn. And they have 0 cards in hand, so like their best top deck is what, a Reflector Mage to get me off a creature or something. Yeah, I don't know if they have any outs any possible outs. Like Dahlia's lieutenant would pump their team, but actually only 2 of their team, and that still doesn't give them great attacks. Like I can still chump block this Dahlia with a token, and whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty sure like if I had 1 more minute, I win next turn, no question. And so as also like my mind being blown enough on the previous match of winning a game 1 and then winning a match against humans. Now I have effectively won a 2-game match against humans, and in this case, the Supreme Phantom was extremely relevant. So yeah, my mind is baffled now. At this point, and yeah, like if I can win against humans now, does that mean I have no bad matchups? Thinking face. That was just the sideboard for this matchup. So yeah, that was a really interesting matchup. You see Colonnade and Gideon doing a lot of work. And I'm glad that I can beat humans now. Like, so far, post M19, I have a effectively 100% matchup against humans, obviously. But seriously, like, maybe it is not. I guess it's very possible that it is more just like in a pretty even matchup now, as opposed to just definitely unfavored before. Like I might be closer to how other Spirits decks were before Supreme Phantom, of being kind of even, but being able to win. Whereas, I mean, I assume other Spirits decks have gone from even to like pretty favored between having Vial and Coco already plus Supreme Phantom. But it could be that I am actually even just favored now, rather than just even. I know. Well, it'll take more time to tell, but results are promising so far, clearly. And so these last 2, spoilers, those last 2 matchups are Tron, and I just trounced them 2-0 both times. So this is the time to tune in if you hate Tron. If you have other Spirits decks that die to Tron, as they do more often than mine. Catlight, I had only 1 land there, so mulligan. Catlight, I know, says with Bant's, like Bant Spirits, or her list of Bant Spirits, whatever, that she thinks it's like exactly the truest 50-50 matchup for her. I'm guessing maybe because Ugin is unbeatable, whereas a lot of other things are beatable. But my build has a decidedly favored matchup against Tron. For these reasons, counter spells are great. You pressure them. Maybe you can counter early Sylvan Scrying or whatever, but then these clean up like whatever you need to later, and you still have like plenty of pressure. But these, like, what do you know? I have spells that can actually counter Ugin. Not to mention Karn, but like Ugin is the big boogeyman for Spirits matchups, of the cards that, just in general, but especially of the ones that other Spirits decks have no way of countering. Because what do you know? Spell Queller doesn't counter literally every spell in the format. And also, you only have 4 of them, even with Cocos to find you more. But yeah, this ends up looking fine. I have a couple lands, a couple creatures, a couple counter spells. I'd probably keep that. Yeah, because I just need a 3rd land, and Moorland Haunt has potential. I don't know the matchup, but has potential to be a very powerful land, so I'll keep it. But now I know I'm against Tron, so. So as you'll see by the match, I think I get, I think either this game or maybe next game, I end up getting Ulamog, which is awkward. So by the end of this league, I believe I have figured out, like, I just aggressively will fetch shock. I apparently hadn't figured that out at this point, and also through my I've played against Tron plenty before, but apparently at this point I hadn't kind of figured that out. But by the end of this league, like, you'll see, I will just fetch shock all the time. Now, against Tron, because they do not threaten your life total in a way that's relevant. Like, maybe this lets them kill me with Ugin 1 turn faster, but obviously they don't threaten your life total, and you want to have as many colors as possible to reduce the chance of Ulamog taking you off colors. Because like, you can win through Ulamog if you still have colors. So like, you know, if you don't have Path, or if you're tapped out from Path and they can take off all your white sources, then you either draw Path later or you untap with Path but don't have white sources. So I would just aggressively fetch and shock now against Tron. And I hadn't determined that at this point, obviously. Yeah, so if they didn't already have... Yeah, so they played a Tron piece, got the other Tron piece. If they didn't already have Tron lined up, I just play Supreme Phantom, get in maximum damage, and then not only this turn, but have just a more appreciable clock for 3 damage this turn and on every subsequent turn. But since they have natural Tron and I have 2 counterspells, I just want to take care of Karn, whatever they cast now, and then hope that I, even if I have to spend the next 2 turns countering things and hitting for 1, it doesn't feel great, but hopefully that just runs them out of their stuff, and then I can start slamming creatures and kill them before the next things. But I definitely need to make sure the stuff that they already have doesn't resolve, and then they just need to top deck more. So yeah, Chromatic Star is obviously looking better for me already. Ancient Stirrings, I mean, I can't and not going to counter. But Oblivion Stone, fortunately, they only have 2 mana left, so I can go ahead and counter it. Get the mana leak, because I know. Possibly argue Logic Knot, because I may or may not be able to do it as much as 3. But, well, so next turn, with the land drop and 2 in the battlefield, Logic Knot can be just as good as Mana Leak. It's being able to use 1 land with 3, but if I don't need a Logic Knot next turn, I can have more land dropped where it just gets just good. So, although possibly there's possibly on turn 4 where I want to cast Supreme Phantom and then Logic Knot that turn, in which case I might only Logic Knot for 2, but maybe they're casting something bigger like Ulamog at that point, where even 2 is good enough. But it's possible you could argue for using either counterspell, and it might not make that big of a difference. But I think that's why, since next turn the Logic Knot is at least as good as Mana Leak and potentially better, if situations allow. So yeah, I'm keeping up Logic Knot again for assuming they have another threat, and fortunately, yeah, Ugin is exactly the one. Again, every other Spirits deck would just basically concede right now. They only have 2 again, and I can Mana Leak again. I've taken care of 2 payoffs, I have 3 cards left, and so now I'm out of counterspells. I just gotta start slamming creatures and close out the game. And hope that I draw either my 3rd counterspell, or that this Path to Exile is good against if their next threat is World Break or whatever. So just hope I can close out the game without they have other things. So yeah, the Oblivion Stone is annoying, and yeah, feeling like I have not passed. I now have not passed the test of hoping that they don't have another payoff. But we'll see how it goes. But just figure that I'm probably forcing the O-Stone, and I am in fact forcing the O-Stone. So when I do this opt, I figure I can opt looking for Selfless Spirit, but if I Selfless Spirit, they just pop the O-Stone immediately. So at least this way, I give them the option, like I have the possibility of getting in 5 damage if they don't pop the O-Stone. But most likely it forces anyway, and it does, so it's pretty equivalent. And then now I can opt, like, I might have a sorcery speed threat, or find a sorcery speed threat or whatever. If I find Spell Queller, that'll be good, since you know, it's fine to keep, because I can cast it this turn, like if they have another Oblivion Stone, or whatever, or just, it's a threat that I can guarantee that I can threaten something. World Breaker is not. So I could just cast Spell Queller here, have the threat there, and then path the World Breaker. But I figure I still want to keep this for another O-Stone or something. Maybe even Sylvan's Scrying, finding a Sanctum of Ugin or whatever that land is could be relevant. So I just activate the Moorland Haunt to get a token. And draw Snapcaster Mage, so you know, I could just go ahead and path the World Breaker to get in the 1 damage, but it's very, since I didn't draw a 4th land, if I drew a 4th land, that's easy, but I still want to keep the Spell Queller for O-Stone or whatever, and then if not, then I can Snapcaster off to end of turn, dig for more creatures, my last Logic Knot, whatever, and then as well as getting that extra body on the board so that I can path, you know, potentially next turn and attack with 2 creatures instead of just doing it pathing now to attack with 1 creature. So I just pass, planning to hope to do one of these. And yeah, no, there's another payoff. So in this case, yeah, I figure the Snapcaster is going to be the best thing for digging me or something. This path is taking a World Breaker, so Spell Queller is, you know, not particularly relevant. Like they don't have other their creatures can block any of my creatures whether they fly or not. So, I mean, other than, I guess there's like Ulamog or Wormcoil, but at this point, the Snapcaster Mage is the most valuable creature in the path I need for the World Breaker. But Island is not what I want. And Drox Captain is pretty good. Here, draw another Queller. So again, I could path or Captain, but you know, if I Captain, it just dies to Karn. I can't get in an attack, so I can hold up Spell Queller again for still O-Stone, whatever. Or yeah, actually, basically planning to just discard it or exile it again to Karn, because again, I need this path for the World Breaker, and the Drogskull Captain is a more relevant threat. So now I can just go ahead and end a turn path since I don't have other things to do. So this turn, so I draw Supreme Phantom and Drogskull Captain. You know, obvious thing might be to just cast the Captain for mana efficiency, especially like if they have another World Breaker, only have 2 mana left, whatever. But here, Karn is still around at ridiculously high loyalty. Either one of these I cast is very likely to be enough to incentivize a Karn minus on them. In which case, like, the hexproof isn't relevant, because, I mean, Drogskull Captain is the only thing that is reasonable to target, so it doesn't matter giving him a Spirit hexproof. And if say something like this turn I can Supreme Phantom, it gets minus. Next turn I can draw Exile Captain, and then either maybe I decide I'll attack Karn, but most likely I'm just going to keep attacking my opponent. And so then maybe Karn minuses on draw Exile Captain again, but but maybe it's at that point. Yes. So like there are possibilities of maybe I draw Rattle Chains or something next turn, in which case I can give it a way of sort of protecting draw Exile Captain, just like flashing in Rattle Chains next turn, then flashing in draw Exile Captain. So I want to throw the less valuable one out to get exiled this turn. But aside, like this point, this has so much loyalty, and things have gone, so much has already gone so wrong. I'm just ignoring this Planeswalker and getting 4 straight to the face. Sure enough, Karn exiles that. And so I talked about drawing the Rattle Chains. I didn't remember that I was actually going to be drawing Rattle Chains, but still, how to describe, I think, despite the fact that I was explaining earlier that Rattle Chains could put me in a position where I want to just like end a turn and then can end turn draw Exile Captain, I'm deciding, so I think, so in this case, as being, because I'm basically finding, like, I'm not killing Karn, like, I can't kill Karn, but also I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm just going to keep attacking their face. And since both of these cards are good, then playing this out will incentivize Karn to minus again rather than going to my hand, in which case, like, I don't want to lose either of these cards in my hand. So I feel like I'd rather be able to get an extra point damage here and incentivize a Karn minus. I feel like is more valuable, possibly, than losing either of these cards in my hand. But that could be wrong. Because again, it puts me in a position where, like, if they minus again, then maybe next turn I might have enough to go after killing. Although, like, what does this do? Minus 3, so it goes down to 8. So like, there's no realistic way I'm actually killing it, but I don't know, maybe. My reason was I still would rather incentivize him minusing Karn as much as possible. Dismember, just losing 4 life from the captain is fine with me anyway. So even though I don't have the captain, it's still like, oh, but yeah, I guess he's just dead to these. So like now he has to minus 1 of these anyway. And there's Sylvan Scrying just getting another tower. And we got some Rattle Chains, so he's up, especially now he's at 3, like, he's still going to face. Rattle Chains is great here against this minus. So we just like put him in positions where he had to. So I guess the thing, like, not only putting out, so it wasn't only the casting lords that kept the down ticks, but also hitting him in the face enough, like, to threaten the life total, where he's had to also minus on the Snapcaster Mage. Like, just everything just forced him to keep minusing, so I could keep my resources in hand to rebuild from the stuff he was killing on board, and just keeps pressuring the life total, since, like, that's my only way of winning. I'm not winning it in the Karn War unless I just kill them. And now, yeah, and so it's like pressured him enough now where he has to kill his other Karn just to minus my Rattle Chains. And an Ulamog here to take my 2 lands. But we got Hallowed Fountain off the top. Let's attack him like I'm not chump blocking this Ulamog. I want either of my creatures to be lethal end of turn, or next turn, like, because of Karn, or if he has another removal spell. Or like this Ulamog is not killing me now. I have 2. If I attack with the Spirit now, I have 2. Either of my threats become lethal next turn. Even besides the fact that obviously this Rattle Chains will protect from the Karn, but maybe he has something else that could go wrong. I am not going to chump block this Ulamog. And we get to do the old Rattle Chains trick again. Karn, Red Realm's Karn Liberated is countered because not just the ability, the Karn Liberated itself. I never noticed that. I just saw that right now. It's funny. Yeah, again, I'm not chumpling this with the Rattle Chains either. I don't want there to be any possibility at this last card in his hand other than an O-Stone. Like, I guess I'm dead to O-Stone, and obviously he can't cast Dismember on these, but I don't know, maybe there's something. And Walking Ballistic Kill, but yeah. I want both of these threats to be lethal. And they are, so he wins. Yeah, that was a pretty intense Tron match, Tron game that I, at many different points for many different reasons, thought I had no business winning. But there you go. I would say that Spirits as a deck as a whole, but especially this build, is the deck to play to beat up on all the decks that everyone loves to hate, like Tron, KCI, all these other miscellaneous combo and big mana decks, Lantern Control. Like, these are all the decks that make people so salty. Losing to Tron or Lantern or random combo decks or whatever, and we just have favored matchups against all of those. So if you love to hate on the decks that people love to hate on, or something like that, then again, we got a couple of good counterspells and creatures. So wasn't sure what he was talking about. Bait Warrior. Alright, I think that's the end of this game, but I still think, even at the end of this game, I didn't know what he was talking about with this, but yeah, so at this point, after that Ulamog, on the last game, I finally figured out I just need to fetch shock. Interesting, yeah, I'll go ahead and counter that. I think I've talked about it in previous matches on my previous videos, I think. Not sure about if it was in this video, but I'm at least more incentivized to keep my Mausoleum Wanderers when they have an opportunity to cast counterspell if I have a Lord already, because the difference between having a 1/1 and a 2/2 is huge as far as attacking body goes. A 1/1 by itself is going to be not very impactful in general, but especially with Ancient Stirrings be as powerful it is, and like, yeah, Ancient Stirrings is so important for Tron, just assembling, they need to assemble all the pieces, and I have enough disruptions, try to keep them off anything that they might need to do, so that seems like an easy counter to Ancient Stirrings, of Ancient Stirrings. They have another one, but you know, they get a power plant, and they have a tower, so, but they had Forest. I mean, maybe they have Tron in hand, but they just wanted to do Ancient Stirrings this turn, who knows, but it feels pretty good since they are not going to just have turn 3 Tron or whatever. And now this is just excellent. We'll keep up Rattle Chains or Counterspell. And Sylvan Scrying is, again, they have 2 pieces of Tron. If Forest indicates they might not have the other piece of Tron, this is just easy mana leak. I think, again, I start with the mana leak because the Logic Knot has potential, especially this game since I already have 3 in the graveyard. Then Logic Knot is future Logic Knot is going to be at least as good as Mana Leak, even with as things currently are. Missing a third land drop, annoying, but yeah. So now this is Stone, and although, like, for one, I mean, obviously I would have loved to have my third land drop so I could spell Queller this, but so I have to decide between getting Morale Chains out or countering this. Like, it could be safe. It might be a while before they can activate it anyway, but so yeah, it could be a while before they can activate it, and I've already used one counter spell, one hard counter spell, and I would love to save this for an Ugin or something, but like I would absolutely let this resolve if I had a Selfless Spirit, obviously, but I don't have a Selfless Spirit, and it's possible like I've disrupted enough that I'm feeling like my best chance is just hope that since I don't have a way to answer this, like I'm gonna give them enough time to just make a land drops to activate it, and there's no guarantee of me drawing Selfless Spirit. So my best hope is just that I know countering this will give me the opportunity to start applying pressure, and I just have to hope that they whiff on other payoffs or the third land to cast their payoffs. So I go for the Logic Knot. And 4 Spike is good enough. Miss a land drop again, but it's another captain. At least I can rattle chains and have a couple creatures I can follow up with after that. But rattle disruption and just need to start slamming creatures now. They've had two non-Tron land draws and a redundant one, so they've gone to Thragtusk naturally, which could be annoying. It's a big guy and gains them all of life, but all I can do is rattle chains. At this point, I could hold back rattle chains block or flash in both these Mausoleum Wanderers to block, because the first one will be 1/1, and then when the second one pumps it to 2/2, then a 1/1, and those can block. So there are 2 different ways that I can achieve a 2-for-1. I guess the other option is play Supreme Phantom and trade with rattle chains, but this rattle chains is too poor in this matchup. I've already used 2 counter spells, but I might draw other counter spells. Just being able to play at flash speed with counter spells and spell quellers, and also just like if I draw a Selfless Spirit, keeping it in hand, it's rattle chains for it. But I'm also seeing a line of I can just play double Mausoleum Wanderers this turn, take a hit from Thragtusk, then next turn Supreme Phantom, and there'll be 3/3s, so I can just 1-for-1. And getting a 1-for-1 Mausoleum Wanderer trade for Thragtusk, they're going to be left with the 3/3, but the 3/3 doesn't matter as much as the 5/3. So that's basically what I'm going to end up doing, because, yeah, being able to trade my Mausoleum Wanderer, a single Mausoleum Wanderer against the bigger half of a Thragtusk seems like a fine deal to me. So I can just take a hit. Get my Mausoleum Wanderers out there. See, so like since I'm drawing the Supreme Phantom is great too. Since I am planning to do the Supreme Phantom, make these 3/3s and block, I could attack with one of these and have the other one to block, but for one, like just getting in 1 damage isn't that significant, and I don't want to be blown out by Dismember. So I just want to guarantee that unless he has 2 Dismembers, that I will be trading with this Thragtusk. Like, I could take 1 hit, fine, but now that I'm at 9, I cannot take another hit from this Thragtusk. Well, I can, but I'd really rather not. When I can just get the problem done now, and then start attacking with my other Mausoleum Wanderer next turn. So we get a good trade there. So, I don't know why he does. So this is this kind of instance where yeah, I don't know, for one, why he feels he needs to field a ruin me at all. Why my opponent feels they need to field a ruin me at all. Like, they don't need a forest. They have forest. They saw an hidden island last game, and I haven't playing this turn. Maybe they forgot that I island last game and thought that I was fetch shocking this game because I don't have basics, but that's dumb. So on top of all that, of why it's necessary to field ruin me at all, this also clearly shows when people don't understand, when they don't read the card rattle chains and like realize and understand what it can do. Because now I can float blue, fetch my basic, and when I've been punished for several turns of missing my third land drop and having a bunch of 3-drops in hand, they're just giving me a way to have 3 mana and flash in a Drogskull Captain on my upkeep. So, I mean, there is consideration for not doing the Drogskull Captain, just in case, like, maybe I naturally draw a 3rd land, or I draw my Logic Knot and keep up a Spellcaller Logic Knot, but there's so few things that I would need to draw in this draw step that would be better than just doing Drogskull Captain right now. I guess a land would be the best, but the Spellcaller is unlikely to. I guess Spellcaller, I need a land and from the Castle of Stone or whatever. So, but it's like, I know, it's Drogskull Captain. I guess, yeah, Stony Silence is a good thing to draw. That would shut off O-Stone. That would be a good thing to cast here if I didn't have the Drogskull Captain. But there are so few things that I would rather that I would miss out on that Drogskull Captain to cast this turn. That the Drogskull Captain is best. So now, like, my pressure is upped from them gaining 5 life to a pretty intimidating 25. That to I have all these lords that are making a very fast clock very quickly, and yeah, I'm not trading a Drogskull Captain for that. I can take another hit from this guy, from this beast. In this case, got lethal. Or, well, yeah, so I talk about how obviously I'm not blocking it, but I kept, or yeah, I couldn't attack next turn, but yeah, never mind. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, both of these games were some of the more interesting games I've had against Tron. Like, I mean, usually the matchup is pretty interesting. I have to pick my spots for my counterspells and stuff. But usually it's pretty straightforward. Like, I just play creatures, counter some things, and you know, it's fun and interesting thinking about, but like the situations aren't necessarily crazy like this. But both of these games were some of the most just ridiculous like scenarios that I've won from. Yeah, this was a good match. I enjoyed it. And yeah, now on to the last match. We get to Tron them again, or we get to prevent them from Troning us again. Blind matchup, got Self Spirit, a couple lords, some lands. Yeah, seems good. Oh look, an Urza land, Field of Ruin should be good, right? Yeah, maybe. It could be. Who knows? Ooh, Rattle Chains, exactly what I want to see. I mean, I want to see counterspells after that, but I want to see the turn 2 Rattle Chains and then start drawing counterspells. Sylvan Scrying, yeah, can't do anything about it this time. But they're not turn 3 Troning, so that's good. Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why it flashed the Ulamog. I noticed that during the game, my Ulamog became, or my Polluted Delta became an Ulamog. Yeah, that's not just the replay bug. I remember seeing that when the game actually happened. Who knows? Yeah, so I'm just fetch shocking again. as described earlier, get rail chains. Path. Oh, yeah. So path could be an interesting as I record. That reminds me of. So I think I said we're the same in both these rounds, but we'll just make sure. So I keep 2 paths for World Breakers, Logs, Wormcoil Engines, etc. But I mean, we want to bring in Negate. Like, obviously the spell's not good here, but Negate is a great counterspell. Vendilion Click is great. Just, you see their hand, take whatever payoff they have. Stony Silence is great. And Tension Sphere is just catch-all removal for whichever planeswalkers, Karn, Ugin, Wormcoil, the Wormcoil tokens, if somehow, or I guess if they O-Stone to blow up their whatever, or yeah, hit the O-Stone if they're tapped out from blowing it up. So yeah, those are good sideboard cards. Then good on 2 paths, like I said, keeping 2 paths is good. Feels good for the things that you need. Spell Snare is obviously bad. Curious Obsession, not as necessary here. And then we just needed to trim 1 more card, and Mausoleum Wanderer is the least impactful. Like I see, it is good when it counters Sylvan Scryings and Ancient Stirrings in turn 1. So I mean, that's not the only reason but we also need the pressure. Just getting a 1-drop that can be a 3/3 or whatever, like Wild Nicodle, backed up by counterspells, seems pretty good against Tron. But yeah, I mean, it's less impactful than the other thing. So we can trim 1 just because we have a 5th sideboard card that we want to trim it for. Otherwise, like I'm fine having 4 Mausoleum Wanderers in my deck against Tron. But it's not as good as the other cards. And in this match, yeah, sideboard the same in this round. So that's why I have a Path to Exile there. My polluted deltas are all Ulamog's, and yeah, even I'll still fetch shock for my 3rd white-blue duel. I don't want to die. Like, if I tap out for Spell Queller countering the O-Stone and they just Ulamog me or something, I don't know. I want to be able to path it or have whatever colors I need. Double blue for my Logic Knots, whatever. And we get just end of turn Drugstore Captain since they didn't do anything that we. Well, I mean, I care about Sylvan Scrying, but couldn't do anything. Although, well, since they did Sylvan Scrying, and I had held this Field of Ruin, so I could have played Field of Ruin earlier, but I didn't need to yet since they had Forest and it also hides the information. But now that I know they have there's this tower coming up. Now it's a great time to play Field of Ruin. It was also really fortunate that I was able to hold off till turn 4 for it, because Field of Ruin can sometimes feel like overall it's worth it over Ghost Quarter, I think, but despite the activation cost putting you down 2 mana for this turn, so it is good when you can keep it in mind, like if there are a couple of different spots where you anticipate you'll be able to use it, lining it up to use it at the time when it most conveniently fits with your curve. So in this case, when I get to 4 mana, I will be able to Field of Ruin their land on the draw step and have a 2-drop cast. So with 4 mana, I can Field of Ruin and still play another spell rather than using my whole turn on turn 3. I mean, if I had a Mausoleum Wanderer in hand, like I could do it on turn 3 and flash a Mausoleum Wanderer, but in this case, it is convenient that I could plan for it this way. And have the Selfless Spirit out there as protection against O-Stone. So yeah, do it on the draw step. I don't know how many forests this version runs, but gives keeps a forest in their deck to maximize their chance of drawing a forest before I thin out a forest from their deck. And perfect, they have an O-Stone that they can't activate, and I have a Selfless Spirit. So, I don't need the Self Spirit. It's better just have the body out there. And I can just get in another Drugstore Captain for more damage. them to 2. Sylvan Scrying for their land, and force me to know to sacrifice my Selfless Spirit. And I do in fact know to sacrifice my Selfless Spirit. Yeah, Field Rune's great. Oh, and I draw another one. Wow. I'm so good. I'm so good at Magic, drawing Field Ruin against Tron. I mean, that's why you put 2 of them in your deck. I think this message from later is I misclick through a combat step and miss 4 damage. It's not lethal that turn, but they do end up being at 4 on a later turn. Yeah, so I can just hop there, like I want to counterspell. And I have Field of Ruin again when they have double lands. Yeah, they've gotten their Tron, but I have Field of Ruin. How great. How good I am at Magic, right? So I end up playing this other land rather than Field of Ruin this turn, because they're unlikely to pop the O-Stone this turn. I only have 1 creature on board. I mean, Rattlechains is a pretty broken creature, so like obviously you should crack O-Stone on it. I mean, probably not seriously, but and I have a logic knot that I want to counter a payoff this turn, so they're not going to O-Stone. If they do O-Stone, I can flash Selfless Spirit, and then they probably don't have enough mana for another payoff. But oh yeah, so I think the main thing, the main reason in it being basically what I talked about last game with the curve, since I have a 2 mana thing, and I have a logic knot to answer whatever their payoff is for Tron this turn. And I don't want to play, if I'm not going to use the Field of Ruin this turn, I don't want to play it this turn if I have another land, so that I don't give away the info. So it's more mana efficient, just use a logic knot for the threat this turn, then next turn on 4 mana, I can Field of Ruin and Selfless Spirit again. Yeah, so that's why I do this. And they don't do anything, so even better. I still fetch Shock and flash in a Selfless Spirit. Well, not Shock, I get a Shock, but have tapped and flash in a Selfless Spirit. Draw Captain's pretty nice. Yeah, so we do basically the same as last turn, just well, except don't flash in Selfless Spirit yet, because keeping that logic knot. I also demonstrate how good I am at Magic by, so I think he goes ahead and cracks the O-Stone here now. Yeah, I guess so. So I can sack Selfless Spirit to save my Rattlechains, which is worth it. Yeah. But I also demonstrate how good I am at Magic by expertly, blindly picking the correct land. So I guess you don't know, in general, if you have something like Field of Ruin to throw them off Tron, so I mean, this is something a lot of people don't know. I didn't know it for a while until someone explained. It seems obvious you want to hit the tower, because if you minimize their towers, then like tower makes the most mana. So if you minimize their towers, it seems like that keeps them low in mana. But you actually want to disrupt one of the 2 mana lands, because if they use something like a Sylvan Scrying or Ancient Stirrings or whatever to recover their missing Tron piece on a future turn, then so they'll have to tap one of their land. They'll probably have to tap like So if they cast Sylvan Scrying, they have to tap their forest and one of their Tron lands to search up the other Tron land. And if you had gotten them off tower, then they find tower, and when they play it that turn, they have 3 mana from it, rather than if you had taken the mine, where they only have 2 mana for it that turn, and that 1 mana difference might be the difference between, say, being able to cast Karn that turn or not. But I have 2 choices, and I, very expertly and professionally in the blind picked the correct land, because oh wait, no, they have tower instead of I thought it was Rilla, but also I guess I was also expertly correct in this case for not picking tower because they had backup tower but not backup mine. I thought I'd remember them having another power plant backup, but they had backup tower. So there are multiple reasons there. Yeah, I can still hold up Logic Knot even by tapping out with Drogsaw Captain, and this gets in the extra damage. I guess might have talked over where that happened again. Maybe it was the last turn where I didn't attack with the creatures, but yeah. Click through on accident. Oh yeah, so they did also having an extra power plant. So see how good at Magic I am. I knew exactly in the blind which land to hit. So this is where it's relevant that they end up for 4 when I missed 4 damage earlier, I think. Clicking through combat, I think. And Forest. So you can hardcast Karn. I think I paused for like a couple seconds thinking about whether I actually need to counter this, if there's anything that could possibly go wrong. Just making sure that it is correct to counter or whatever. And that couple of seconds of thinking makes my opponent just concede the game, since it doesn't actually matter, I guess. Yeah, that was a pretty cool league, I thought. Pretty fun, some interesting matchups, and yeah, I'm still mind bottled that I can beat humans now. So yeah, again, you can find me on Discord, Facebook, Twitter at Dilly Poppy, Twitch at Dilly Poppy when I start streaming at some point. Whatever, to reach out to me with any questions about the deck in general, about any lines of play that I didn't touch on or whatever. In these leagues, I should be live recording with live commentary. Just uploading videos for my next leagues until I get a stream schedule and set up. But yeah, I hope you learned something and were interested. Found these interesting. And I guess any thoughts I have at this. So I haven't gotten a chance to play another league yet. This is the last. So trying to think if I have any thoughts of future changes I might make before my next league. So I did talk about. Was remembering about Gemstone Caverns was a card that I was interested in previously, and tried for a little bit, but thought that having 2 of each of these was better in the meta at the time. I think it was when Jeskai was still kind of in its prime of rising up against more humans. So Moorland Haunt is very excellent against Jeskai, and I guess I figured I was also wanting the Field of Ruin for that matchup because of Viscanta, but that's probably not as big of a deal, where it's probably could have been perfectly reasonable to keep the Gemstone Caverns and only 1 Field of Ruin at that time. But now at this time, at the current metagame, since there's not only Jeskai but also Tron be at the top of the meta, I'd probably still stick with this. But if the metagame develops to a point where there are matchups where Field of Ruin isn't as important as much. I'll probably go back to trying the 1 Gemstone Caverns and only have the 1 Field of Ruin. Any other things I'm thinking about, like I still want the second negate, so I take out Supreme Verdict for a second negate. It's not as, well, general until recently hasn't been as necessary anymore. Like I initially had it when Grixis Death Shadow was one of the biggest decks in last year during the PPTQ season, so that was one of the reasons that maybe kept Supreme Verdict, and now it looks like there has been some results again from Grixis Death Shadow recently, so that might end up making me keep Supreme Verdict. And still haven't gotten a, but yeah, still would like to find another spot for a negate. Like maybe go down the 1 Stony Silence for a second negate, and not really conclusive results in my experience with Remorseful Cleric yet, so I'll still keep needing testing for whether I want, whether that's better than my other graveyard options. That's the main things I can think of right now for considerations for future modifications so far. Still should just get in some more leagues to figure out what I need. Yeah, maybe I'll go back to the main deck negate instead of the Spell Snare. I like having as many 1 mana spells as I can, but I mean I definitely don't want a second Spell Snare before I have 3 of these kind of hard 2 mana counter spells. So that's why I trimmed 1 negate and 1 Spell Snare as 2 of my slots for the Supreme Phantom. It's possible that the negate is a little more impactful overall over Spell Snare, and might be the best place to get that second negate in if I want to keep everything else. Curious Obsession still needs some testing. Said I've been playing with it for at least I know that IQ list was a month ago, so at least a month. I think I'd been playing it for maybe a couple weeks before that, not sure exactly. But as a one-of, it doesn't come up all that often, and it does somewhat, like, I don't trim it a lot necessarily, I don't think, in sideboarding. But it definitely is something I sideboard out sometimes. So that makes it a reason that makes me see it even a little bit less sometimes, just besides just being a one-of. That also could be an argument for bringing it back to opt, since, I mean, sometimes I do trim one opt in sideboarding anyway, and in some of those matchups, that's the reason why I trim Curious Obsession. I just do that instead of one of the opts, where I would be trimming an opt anyway, like against Burn, clearly. But I think it's still seemed good enough overall to keep testing. Could be that I could decide it's too bad overall in the future, but yes, I think that's actually all I have to say about future considerations for deck changes. Yeah, thanks for watching.